Someone who is leading a German-speaking team, what are the triggers that they can look out for to make sure that they open up the stage and give someone a place to be self-aware and not always be efficient?
One thing that you have to do if you're a foreign manager for a DACH team, you have to earn their trust. You cannot simply tell them, my door's always open, please come to me whenever you need help. We just won't do it just because you need to earn our trust. You need to earn our will to even consider you as a safe space when we're having problems, because we might not even tell our parents. Why should we tell you? We don't know you, actually. I would advise managers to take one-on-ones with their team seriously, to have an open door policy, and to also sometimes remind their reps to close their laptops or keep their laptops closed Sunday evening. I don't think that anybody in this world, especially young professionals that come fresh from university, start into their first jobs, should sacrifice their health and themselves as a tool in sales.
Thank you so much for listening to the first ever English sales podcast for the German-speaking market. Before we continue, I want to make you a promise. I promise that with this show, I will do my utmost best to bring in the guests and share the stories that help you succeed in the DACH market. But I can only do so much. So, if you hit the subscribe button, I can get more guests, bigger stories, and better insights to help you succeed in your sales job. So, with no further ado, sit back, relax, and let the show begin. Caro, why should someone who is listening right now care about mental health in sales?
I'd say because in sales, all we have as tools is ourselves. So whenever ourselves as a tool, myself as a tool breaks, there's no replacement for myself. So why shouldn't we all care about ourselves much more than we actually
I
do
like
these
that.
days?
I like that idea with the tools. As an actor, you always talk about instrument. So your body is your instrument. If your body isn't working, you can't play music. You can't do art, right? So what do you feel like, or how is the attitude towards mental health then from everyone else? Because I feel like there's such a weird vibe when people talk about mental health. How would you define that?
I'd say it depends on the generation that you were born in, especially for millennials and Generation Z and later generations. I think they're very aware of why mental health really matters and why you should properly care about yourself. For boomers and the elderly, it might sound a bit weird that there is this new trend that recently, aka 30 years, came up with burning out and being overworked and stuff like that. So I think that especially for the younger generation, it's great that people start speaking up, but still there's this weird hesitation to really talk about these kind of things publicly. So not only if you're a millennial or a Gen Z person, but also for boomers that just think that they will not be, taken as proper business partners, a proper salesperson, people afterwards, because people might give them the burnout stamp or something like that. So I'd say people are aware of the fact that mental health is a thing, but they might still have a hard time talking about it because I'm not affected. It's always the others that are affected, and I'm super mentally healthy and everything is fine until you can't properly cook your spaghetti anymore. But I think that will come later.
Definitely. I'm really intrigued to hear more about your experiences as well, especially in sales. You said one thing, just to go back though, you said one thing with the different perceptions depending on generation, while still all generations don't seem to like to talk about it. Where do you see the differences? Because right now I'm like, okay, but then both don't want to talk about it, but both see it differently? Like how would you define that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course it does. So, just by giving a very blunt example, if you break your ankle or if your knee cap springs out, it's quite obvious that something is not right, that something happened to you, and that you need to take some rest, that you need to go to the doctors, that you might also have to stay a while at the hospital, just because we can see that there is some kind of issue with your body. But as soon as we're talking about mental health or things that affect you mentally, it's very hard of picturing this or of pinning it down to one thing that's not right with your body, just because it all happens in your brain. It happens with emotions, it happens with thoughts. It also might pull up some childhood trauma or stuff like that. So of course you're having a hard time to talk about it because it's a super private thing. And most of the people that speak up about their mental situation and also their mental health and maybe also their issues with mental health have never spoken to anybody else before publicly. So you're sharing something that is very private, that is very you, and that which makes you even more vulnerable than telling people that you broke your foot or anything else, because it's obvious, but having mental health issues isn't obvious.
What made you go into that topic? Why are you now starting to publicly open up to that and share your experiences?
Because I've seen quite many people that were struggling the same way I was struggling, but we all just swept it under the rug and always said, well, but it has to be that way. I know so many people that aspire to be on top of the leaderboard, on top of anywhere else in the world throughout their career. And most of them are struggling, but nobody says something about it. So I'm just the one who's moaning around. It can't be that bad. So I'm just going to keep going. And just keeping going or just, staying with it at one point in time just made me almost break myself. And I don't think that anybody in this world, especially young professionals that come fresh from university, start into their first jobs, should sacrifice their health and themselves as a tool in sales, just to hit quota or to, get rid of the junior title in the junior SDR, to aspire to become an AE sometimes. Because it's worth it just slowing down from time to time and taking the time that you really need.
You said a lot of things that I feel like are crucial, especially the part with you don't really see until you're struggling, because you don't have a broken bone. You just have gradually increasing pain, which is emotional. You can't even explain it. With that in mind, and I am very, very sure that 9 out of 10 people are struggling with mental health, myself included, very much so. And I have I see my triggers, I see my moments, for me, it always feels like I'm running around in my own brain. And I'm like going to the left, and then I go to the left, to the right. And then I'm like, okay, wait a minute. So no, I actually have to, no, wait, it's here. Okay, wait. Okay, cool. Calm down. This is my trigger. And when I see that now, because people have spoken about it, I'm like, okay, cool. I actually need to just calm down for a moment. No one is going to die if I do not do this right now. What, especially in sales with such high pressure, what do you feel like people, what are the challenges and the triggers maybe that people should know about to sensitize? Is that the word? To be sensitive towards their own trigger?
Well, it actually, again, it depends, because the reason why so many people that work in sales are on the on the verge of being burnt out, or at least to experience some serious mental health issues, is, for example, very obvious, the thing about the targets that we have. If you read any kind of leadership or sales leadership book, one of the chapters will definitely always be that the targets that you set for your reps have to be smart. So at some point achievable. On the contrary, 86% of sales professionals miss target month after month after month after month. That's roughly 9 out of 10 salespeople that repeatedly miss target. The thing is, once we hit target, there's something good waiting for us. So maybe more commission or a raise or a new title or something else. So you achieve something good and you earn something good in return. On the flip side, if you miss target repeatedly, there's only bad things waiting for you. So no commission, maybe a decrease in commission, the one or the other private chat with your manager. And most of the times, we all know that if you have a one-on-one that you didn't await booked in your calendar from 1 minute to the other with your managers and maybe also HR, that's nothing good. That's no good sign, right? So all we have is these most of the times unachievable targets that haunt us day after day after day. And whenever we, for example, close a deal as AEs, there are certain transmitters and hormones that our brain produces. And same thing as with sugar or alcohol, for example, we're getting dependent of these transmitters and hormones, meaning that whenever we close a deal, we're on a high, and whenever we don't close a deal or we lose a deal, we're on a very, very low path. So we get dependent on, being successful, and we get haunted by not being successful. So we're even more stressed than anybody else in the working world. And specifically talking about triggers, the main trigger is if you can't take yourself and your personal life and you as a person out of your business persona. So if you can't properly, shut off or shut down after you just close your laptop at the end of the day, and you overly identify yourself with your job, you're more on, you're more on the path for being burnt out and having some serious mental health issues, just because you don't get your distance from what you're doing from 9 to 5.
2 questions. The first one is, how would you recommend companies to support that then? Because it's difficult to give someone a praise and money and prize and etc., when someone isn't performing, right? Like that's really difficult when you're like, actually, why should I even bother? I mean, I'm going to get the money anyways, right? Not that people always think like that, but people are also lazy. So how can companies and sales managers incentivize genuinely mental health?
I'd say even if somebody is not performing, I wouldn't be the one advising companies to nonetheless pay out commissions or anything else. And the thing is that if somebody is struggling with their mental health, firstly and foremostly, their employer is not the one to be on the lookout for that and to be responsible for it. But it's the responsibility of every single one ourselves to properly care for ourselves. Still, I would advise managers to, take one-on-ones with their team seriously, to have an open door policy, and to also sometimes remind their reps to close their laptops or keep their laptops closed Sunday evening. Just because if you don't answer an email at 8 p.m. Sunday, the world won't stop turning if you just wait with answering that friggin' email until Monday morning, 9 a.m. For example. That's a very small trigger of burning out, slowly but steadily. The other thing, of course, there are services such as Auntie or Nilo, or also subscriptions with BetterHelp or InstaHelp for German speaking, or for a German speaking audience specifically. But employers can only advise or suggest their individual contributors and their employees to actually use these services. And especially for international companies that have to, or that want to start their go-to-market motion in the DACH region, they have to follow the GDPR and other data privacy related regulations, and they just can't submit the personal details of one of their sales reps that might be burnt out in just a month or so to any of these providers. Just it wouldn't work. So you can start partnerships with Nilo, Auntie, and the other ones that I just named, or at least, offer workshops from time to time, maybe once a quarter. But in general, there's not much that employers can do other than having open communication, also supporting by using providers, and maybe holding workshops from time to time.
I had a super interesting chat with Niels Brabant about leadership. He also was part of the Sales in DACH podcast. And he spoke about the importance of stepping back and understanding that as a leader, it's not about your performance anymore. It's about supporting the team to perform. But that also means that you cannot push them to hit target. You actually have to enable them and give them a stage where they can perform. I think that is such a crucial part, which is why not everyone is made for leadership. Leadership is actually quite a selfless step towards success, because you succeed if everyone else succeeds. And you kind of give away the, not responsibility, but like the power in a way. And people need to know this. The other question though that popped up was, what about entrepreneurs? Like, I'm running my own business and I am really struggling turning off my mind, especially when I'm just about to launch a new product, or when I'm, there is just a specific job that I wanted to get done today, and I was working 10 hours in front of my laptop. I feel a headache, but I'm like, you know what, just another hour, I'm going to get it done. What would you recommend to entrepreneurs? Just because I know we have quite a lot of listeners of entrepreneurs, also people that are in the academy that want to learn to be more efficient. What do you say to those people?
Actually, almost the same that I would say to salespeople, because as an entrepreneur, even if you're working with, other providers, for example, tax purposes or lawyers or stuff like that, you still are the only tool that you have. So you don't have a team most of the cases that you can rely on if something goes sideways and you just have to take 1 or 2 months off. You're all by yourself most of the times. So whenever you break your own neck just by thinking, well, I can just do 1 or 2 more hours today, who doesn't even care? Who does even care? I'd say every single time you do this, you add just 1 other percent to the bar that you have, and the bar is full with 100%. So if you're on the verge of 95 to 96% already, I'd say it doesn't really matter if you put in this hour today or tomorrow, because if you now just think that you will just need 1 more hour to get this done, it will actually be 2 or 3 hours, just because you've worked through 10 hours straight. You already emptied your cup of what you're able to achieve in one day. Your social battery is run dry. It's simply not efficient if you think that putting in 1 more hour will actually help your business. It will, in the worst case scenario, pull you back 10 steps, just because you might be the one who's, making mistakes, those tiny little nasty mistakes. That will cost you hours and hours and resources, tons of resources in the aftermath of cleaning things up. So if you're an entrepreneur, same thing as for the sellers, you're the only tool you have. If you break this tool, there's no way it will work out in the
I think
end.
that's a very good reminder as well, making sure that even if you get it done and then you're burned out, like then you're actually, on the sofa and you can't get up anymore. Because what people don't really understand with burnout is, and that's something that I didn't know until I experienced it, it comes with depression. It comes with bad thoughts, no self-worth, no confidence. Whatever you do, you can't think beyond your own hands. Like it's horrendous. And I really underestimated that feeling, and I really underestimated on how long it actually takes to get out. And I know, Caro, and if you feel comfortable sharing that as well, I know you've been there before me as well. So like, how did you get into it, and how did you find your way out? Like, what are strategies to find your way back out of that nasty little shitty hole?
Well, I don't know what brought me into this rabbit hole. I think that I dug myself in over time, because I started as a working student, as an SDR. I fully grew into this job. I loved it. So I ended my studies on the go. Then I worked full-time as an SDR. I started a traineeship that I wanted to shorten just because I was at the university 6 months prior. So I knew that I could, keep things up for myself. I had a side business. I had 2 podcasts. I had an engagement that was quite comparable to my ambassadorship for SDRs of Germany. So there were quite some things that just piled up onto another. I just ended up in a relationship. So, there were a couple of things. And there was a turning point for me, and I was 23 years old. I just ended my traineeship with a very good grade. Everything was seemingly going very fine. I just started as an AE. I started closing my first deals, bigger ones from the get-go and stuff like that, also bigger logos. And I remember one day, I think it was a Tuesday, a Wednesday, I don't know, I had a day off, and it was very chilly outside. It was July. And I just wanted to cook myself some pasta. And these are just these little weird details that you remember crystal clear. And I remember that I wanted to, I filled up the pot with the water, and my tap was right beneath the stove. And I just wanted to push the pot with the water to the stove, and I couldn't. I couldn't. So I broke down in my kitchen, and I cried for 2 hours straight because everything was too much. And I really felt what you just said. When you're experiencing a burnout, or, the starting point of depression, there's so much going on. And at the same time, there's nothing going on in your head. You're numb just because you're overstimulated and understimulated at the same time. You're feeling very, very bad for yourself, but also you're feeling this massive guilt towards anybody else, because they might be expecting things from you that you can't, to show up to anymore. And there's so much going on in your head at the same time, that the only thing that you can do is rolling yourself up like a little sushi on the sofa and just be numb and be in, functional freeze mode. And that's it. And you just sit and wait until things get better. And the way that I found out of this misery, one day after my breakdown and breakthrough moment at the same time, I sat down with my managers, both of my managers, who are both good friends of mine, and I told them about my experience. And the first thing we did was a review of all the projects that I had on my plate, and we checked is there anything else that I can possibly either reassign right now, or is there anything where I can start the reassignment process ASAP to just get rid of things that are, burning myself out, that are burying me. Second thing that I did was I was just also writing a list of all the things that I A, have to do on a weekly basis, and B, that I have to do on a daily basis. Things like getting up, cleaning my teeth, washing my hair, doing the dishes, stuff like that are necessary. These are things that I kept. But for example, my engagement with this other company, I ended immediately, just because I knew that it was draining energy that I needed somewhere else. Same thing was for my podcasts. I just buried the one that I didn't like that much. And I only focused and shifted my focus towards the other one, Girl in Sales. And I stuck with it. And these are just the things that helped me in this very situation. But over time, I still, and I am still learning to, get conscious of my triggers. Because, for example, one thing that always helps me identify if I'm on the verge of, getting in this depressive mode once again, I am a very clean and a person that needs a tidied up room. I just need this. Some might call me a control freak, but I just need things to be tidied up. I just need things to have their place and to be in their place in my apartment. And whenever I just see clothes piling up, paperwork not being done, emails not being answered, missing call after call after call from friends, from family, I'm like, okay, something's off. Something's not going in the right direction. And I just remind myself, and I also push myself to sit down, take a couple of minutes for myself. No phone, no Alexa, no nothing. I think I actually did my Alexa. So no nothing. And I just try to once again write this list. What are the tasks that are on my mind day to day, week to week, and by now also on a monthly base. And I just try to cut things off that are not giving me any energy, but that are draining energy.
So if I summarize that, it's 3 things that you do. The first one is communication. Go to your sales manager, go to the company, whoever has the control to take things off your shoulder. Number 1. Number 2, this could also be in the personal life. I'm just thinking, in a relationship. Oh, you're moving and you're currently organizing all of the bits and bobs. Just communicating to the people around you who can help you take off that weight. The other one was prioritizing. Go through your days, understand what really needs to happen and what actually does not need to happen, to then free up space. And then the last thing, which is one of my favorites, self-awareness. It's like, hey, for me, it's always like what are the triggers? But for you, it's like also taking the time, which is something that I have to learn, Caro. So I appreciate you reminding me of that. Taking the time for yourself. No music, no book, I'm just going to listen to a podcast because it's good for you, blah, 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 blah. No, actually just inhale and outhale. Like just breathe, if that makes sense. And I love that. Yeah, letting go.
It's all letting go. And there might be a couple of our listeners that might not feel comfortable in sharing things with their managers, with their partners, with their roommates, I don't know, with their family members, because it takes some balls to actually share these kind of things. Another tip for myself, for you, write it down. Most of the times, if you, and I don't know who said it, but if you can break down your thoughts into written form, you solve 60% of the problem just by naming things that are actively occupying your mind and that are on your mind. And And if you don't feel comfortable in sharing it with somebody from your inner circle or from your work circle, share it with yourself. And one thing is very, very crucial for sharing it with your managers, for example. Please be aware and please keep in mind your managers and HR are not your psychologists.
Yes.
These people also tend to take on your mental health issues and your mental problems and make it to their own problem. So whenever you experience a very rough period of your time, please share it with the people around you, because you might not be the only one experiencing it. But also always, start with a short disclaimer. And tell the people that you're about to share your story with, hey, I'm actually going through a very rough time right now. And I was wondering if I could just, let you into my experience so that you also understand a bit better on why I might just have to take 1 or 2 weeks off. And I just scheduled an appointment with my doctors. So I'll hand in my sick notice tomorrow or the day after. But I just want you to know on why. Just because I don't caught the cold, I don't have the flu, I don't have corona, anything else. I'm just struggling with myself and my thoughts. And I wanted to be transparent with you.
I think that's such a good point. And I'd also feel like therapy, everyone should do therapy. I mean, we all excuse the French, but we all a bit fucked up here and there. Like, I generally think
of course.
Everyone should have a therapy. I certainly go to therapy, just working through things, because you can't put that onto your partner, your best friend, your family all the time. Sometimes you need different strategies. Just like how you said it with the writing down, it makes complete sense to write it down so that you also release the energy of your brain. You don't hold on to it. Sometimes when I feel overwhelmed, I have to write down the things that I have to get done, so that I see, actually, it's not that much. It's fine. I can do this. I just need to prioritize, and I need to understand that I can't do everything all at once. So really great points. I loved watching you recording your masterclass. I really did. I think I learned a lot about processing it and not always having to do it on my own. And even with therapy, it only helps as much as it does if you actually do the things. So getting those exercises that you gave in your masterclass was gold to me. And I really, really appreciate you sharing your experiences there as well. I think one thing that we haven't touched upon yet, just because it's sales and DACH, right? What you covered a little bit at the beginning with the different, there are regulations and you can't just get anyone in and you can't just share the data with people. What are the differences in between regions? Like, do you see a specific difference between UK, DACH, Nordics, etc., in terms of mental health? And what do you see?
Well, I think mental health is an issue anywhere in the world, and I think that being this closed up to talk about this topic is also symptomatic all around the globe. I've not come across any nation who openly talk about mental health issues or struggles with burnout or depression or anything else. Because this topic, it's not new. It's not new. It was the boomers in 1975 who primed the term burnout. Just because they were experiencing so many people, so many not that young anymore professionals that were on the verge of having to go to retirement early just because they couldn't function anymore. And I think that it will need some more time for people to feel comfortable to open up about all of this. Just coming back to, it's not a broken leg. It's not obvious to people that you're struggling. And most of the times, the problem that you're facing in your head is built up from years and years and years and years, and things that you've experienced through your whole life. It might be childhood trauma. It might be a rejection from your partner that you got last week, that was, that one that broke the verge. It might be what a prospect of you said just on accident, and they didn't mean it, but you just took it personally. That it might be so many different things, and just being this vulnerable with other people that are not yourself just takes courage. And I think that there are regions where the stigma of talking about mental health is even higher than in Germany, because in Germany we don't overshare stuff, especially not personal stuff and private things. We just don't, we just don't, because it doesn't bring us any value.
Here we are,
so
Caro.
why should we do this? So I think that our whole nation is very boomer coded when it comes to being open with other people that is not work related, but I think that it will just take some more time for us as a nation feel okay with the fact that it's actually a thing, that it won't go away, and that we need to treat it properly. Because if you break your leg and you just keep on walking, it will eventually get better, because it has to get better. People in the Stone Ages, they couldn't properly cure their leg if they broke it. The Neanderthals, they just had to keep going. But the nice thing is, we're no Neanderthals anymore. So we can actually take the time to focus on ourselves, to improve our health. And most of the times, if you're experiencing mental issues, it will also reflect on your body. You will get some breakouts, so maybe some acne that's flaring up again. You might eventually gain weight. You might get digestive problems. Or problems with your digestion. You might just develop some weird allergies. You might just be lactose intolerant from one day to another, just because your body is trying to show you with all the warning signals that it has, hey, I'm not feeling well. Just change something, please. You're burning me. You're just, you're not handling yourself, your essence of life in a respective way. And of course, in countries like Russia, like Iran, Iraq, China, so in countries that tend to be a bit more, how do I say this politically correct? Closed up, a bit more conservative, a bit more traditional. It might actually also very Christian countries, very religious countries. People might just react in a way like, just get yourself together, just put your shit together. You will overcome this.
It's such an interesting... Sorry.
Yeah, the thing is, there's no solution. We just need more time.
With all of this, I think the key of it, again and again and again, is that awareness, and even seeing what you mentioned before with the, your body will react. This is the last instance. When your body, when your emotional state becomes your physical state, that's going to be a problem, because then you can actually physically not work anymore. I think this is the part with the different regions as well, with when you're emotional, but you're not really talking about emotions that much. I have a friend from Italy who is often very emotional and present and and I, for a German, am very emotional. I find it sometimes quite difficult to think stereotypical German, because my whole family is all I was brought up to communicate. We had almost weekly family conferences to talk about the problems that we as teenagers have, etc., etc. It's so ingrained. But I do see with German friends that is not normal in Germany, let's say, Whereas in like the Roman countries, there's quite a lot of, public fight or public display of emotions, etc., etc. And I wonder if that is something that someone needs to be aware if they're, for instance, having someone from Germany in the team. It's like reading other things, reading other languages, reading the body language. I think at least that's what I found, and that's a very personal experience, or subjective experience. I see body language quite strongly in Germany. So if I see someone closing off, I know that they disagree. But they wouldn't necessarily make it like open, like say that. They just show it, and then they say, but I feel like it's inefficient if I now say that I disagree, because we are actually talking about a whole different topic. So like, that's what I've noticed. So I'm just wondering, for someone who is leading a German-speaking team, what are the triggers that they can look out for to make sure that they open up the stage and give someone a place to be self-aware and not always be efficient, if that makes sense?
Wow, that's a good one. Because I think whenever you have an international team, that also might not be made up out of Germans only. There might also be some Swiss people or some Austrian people who function in a completely different way. Also depending on the region of the respective countries. So people from northern Germany, for example, from Hamburg, or even more far north, they might be even more reserved than people from southern Germany, for example. So deepest Bavaria, once again, very closed off if you're not of their trade. But if you're, for example, a manager from the UK, please don't even think about having an eye-on-eye conversation about mental health with somebody from the deepest parts of Bavaria. It will simply not happen, because they will never accept you as one of their own, just because of the language barrier and stuff like that. And that's okay. That's okay. For example, people from very eastern, very western parts of Germany are super open-minded, very open-hearted people. They might come off a bit stiff at the very beginning, but they're very good people. So just earn their trust by maybe sharing a bit too much of yourself in the very beginning, to, give them the stage or build the stage of, you might not feel comfortable in sharing personal details with me, so I'm just going to take the first step. And I'm just going to, be the bigger person in this moment and share things that I would maybe normally not share with you. I think in general, one thing that you have to do if you're a foreign manager for a DACH team, you have to earn their trust.
Okay.
You cannot simply tell them, my door is always open, please come to me whenever you need help. We just won't do it, just because you need to earn our trust. You need to earn our will to even consider you as a safe space when we're having problems, because we might not even tell our parents. Why should we tell you? We don't know you, actually. That's so weird. And the thing is, you also experience this with other nationalities. You, for example, have the people from the Western Mediterranean, so Italy, Spain, Portugal, and also Iran, Iraq, so all the Arabic countries that are very emotional, that also communicate in a very emotional and involved way. But whenever you're asking for their real and raw emotions, they're just shutting you off because it's not manly, for example. Even women think like that. It's not manly to share this. That's just something that you have to, sort out with yourself. People from the Balkan states, for example, they don't even show emotions. They have very strong emotions and they have very strong opinions, but don't you even dare to ask for their real emotional, insights, because they will simply not share them with you. People from the Nordics might come off very unemotional, but they're very emotional. They don't just talk about stuff like This, it's so weird, and I think it's so great on the other hand, because it's so diverse, and it's so it's just a hodgepodge of realities. And how lucky are we to experience all of this? But still, I think one thing that we all share, you as a manager have to earn my trust as an individual, that you are a safe space and that you won't use this information against me.
That is such a big point.
Because
that is such a big point.
Because if I'm opening up to you, because I might have repeatedly missed target for 1 or 2 months, and I'm like, hey, Helena, I know that that something's off at the moment, because my numbers just, my numbers are against me. And I actually wanted to let you in on something that I've been struggling with for the last 4 months. And it started to show and started to have impact on my, on my professional life. Who ensures me that you're not the one to, run to your manager or run to HR to just draft a plan together with compliance to cut me off?
That is so true. I'm just thinking back, like, when I was working that was an SDR job still, my boyfriend moved to the other side of the world and we had to break up. He had to go because of family, and he ended up a year later coming back, and now we're engaged. It's all really, really, really cute hindsight. But in that moment, my heart broke. The love of my life is gone, and I was struggling. I sat there in front of the laptop, just like tears, just trying to, and I'm gonna send this email to another prospect, and then continue, like solid weeks. And my manager was so good in making me feel safe. And just when you said it, because I was always wondering, what was it with I had a male manager and then a female manager, and both of them were so good in making me feel safe. And I was always wondering how come I was opening up so much? It sounds weird, but I told them so much about how I felt as well. And afterwards, it just felt like I was understood and I am safe, which made me want to go above and beyond for the company. And now that you say that makes so much sense. I think it was exactly that they made me feel like they won't stab me in the back with it. They actually will use it to help me. If I share that, they will use it to help me. I think, though, it goes 2 ways, because the manager side can do just as much. If you, as an individual sales rep, if you don't clearly communicate, if you don't tell them, hey, this is how I'm working. So for me, for instance, I'm not someone who is working well if you only tell me what I have to improve. I am someone who needs compliments here and there. Give me the shit sandwich, tell me something nice, then something bad, then something nice. My brain automatically goes towards the negative thing and will automatically want to improve it. If you only give me the bad one, I feel miserable. I'm like, I can't do anything right, etc., etc. This is how I function, and this is how I need to tell my manager how I need to get feedback, how I need to be supported. I don't need someone to always, every day, check in with me. I think that's inefficient. For me, that's like don't send me that Slack message. It's a waste of my time. I am busy. I have a target on my back. But in our one-to-ones, I want to have a weekly one-to-one where you take 30 minutes just to see where things are, where I can ask questions, where we can have a chit-chat. So I get to know you as a person. And that's it. And that, don't check in with me the rest of the week. So like little things like that is how I function, but I have to communicate that, which is why I kind of want to take the weight off the management side as well. It's a 2-way street, and you can make your life so much better and so much easier if you communicate clearly, as well as from the other side, what you already spoke about, Caro, is offering a space and earning the trust, which I think is crucial. And not many people know this. I think that's such a beautiful, beautiful point. I have one last question. I asked that question all of my guests because I want to make sure that everyone who is listening is now able to use something and do something with that knowledge. What are 3 exercises or tasks that you can do today to improve your mental health?
Well, I think it's not 3 on-point tasks that I can share with the audience, because you can't better your mental health from the get-go. You can't, if you're in a very dark place, it doesn't give you any benefit if you just, take a 10-minute walk outside and everything will clear off. Now, that's not how it happens, sweetie. I'm sorry to disappoint you. So there are different things that you can try to implement in your daily life to make things a bit easier for you. A very simple thing that you can always do whenever you feel a bit swamped at work. Take some proper one-on-one time with yourself, maybe on a weekly basis if it's necessary, sometimes also on a bi-daily basis, where you only set a focus blocker for yourself in your calendar, where you're not available for anybody else, where you're not available for your colleagues, where you're not available for your prospects, where you just, focus on the things that just piled up, that are, haunting you, and that you can't get out of your mind. For example, that's one thing. If you feel like things just got too much for you just because you procrastinized a couple of too many tasks. Another thing that helped myself to, if I just feel I'm feeling too much, and if I feel the numbness coming up once again, is 2 different breathing techniques. On the one hand, we have box breathing. Just imagine your breath being like in a
square,
in a little box. Yeah, like a square. So if you inhale, you just make one line upwards, then you hold your breath, then you exhale downwards, and then you hold your breath once again. Most of the times, or if you're not a pro and if you're not experienced, I would advise you to start with 3 seconds. So 3 seconds inhaling, holding 3 seconds, 3 seconds of exhaling, 3 seconds of holding your breath once again. That just focuses yourself and all that's going on in your brain, all your thoughts on your actual breathing technique in the very moment. So it calms you down, just because it gets rid of all the fuss that might be happening. If you're feeling panic coming up, that's also one thing that I experienced after my first burnout experience, was random panic attacks. And in the very beginning, I didn't even know that it were panic attacks, because my heart was starting to pump. I was feeling cold and warm everywhere in my body. I had problems with my vision. I had problems with breathing properly. And sometimes this lasted for 1 hour or even longer. So whenever I feel this panic coming up once again, what I do is a breathing technique that is, I think, very popular with the Navy SEALs, where you breathe in until you feel your lungs are full to the max, and then you just take a little breath afterwards. So you fill your lungs until the point of no return, and when you think that you've reached this point, there's still a bit of volume left in your lungs, and you fill this little bit of volume, and then you exhale. Once again, this is focusing your brain so much on breathing that everything else is gone. It doesn't solve your problems, but it shifts your focus. And the third thing is just writing things down that are on your mind. And just, make it simple. Make it on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and on a monthly basis. Because especially for salespeople, there will be weekly pipeline reviews with your managers. You can't get rid of those. You just can't. But you could, for example, as a preparation for your reviews, set a blocker every Friday evening. So from 4 to 5 p.m., for example, where you just review all the meetings that you had in these 60 minutes to properly prepare your pipe review on Monday morning, for example. So it's building routines and writing things down to, focus and shift your energy towards the things that you can actually impact and that you can actually change. Because most of the times we're just thinking of things that we can't change, simply. So why bother?
I love this, Caro. Thank you so much. Such good, easy to implement exercises.
You're welcome.
I did the breathing thing with you while you explained. I was like, and that actually is a pretty good one.
Yeah.
The square one I use every time I feel like hyperventilating. Okay, cool.
Box breathing.
Wonder,
Yeah.
guys. Honestly, I highly recommend it. It's not about starting when it's too late. It's actually starting when you think everything is fine. And then you implement that, you create a habit, and you create a healthy habit to prevent burnout, mental health issues, etc., etc. There are so many facets of it. And you just live lighter. And that is what we want for you. Caro, thank you so much for being here. If you guys want to check out what Caro does, what her next steps are, I have put her LinkedIn profile in the notes, as well as her masterclass, which I highly recommend. It certainly has changed my way of living. And again, Caro, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Helena, for giving me this stage.